Hey, what is happening, guys? I hope you are all doing well. So today we're going to be reacting to Necrit's video on the up-and-coming MMO for League of Legends. Now, MMO, I'm sure as you guys know, is the massively multiplayer online game. It's basically kind of like a World of Warcraft style game. You know, there's like Guild Wars 2, there's so many freaking games. There's Final Fantasy 14, like there's loads. My experience with MMOs is relatively limited. I mean, I've played a lot of RPG games, especially ones that are relatively open world. Good example at the minute, I'm playing Genshin. I don't know if it would technically class as an MMO, but I freaking love it. I freaking love it. Just love a good open world game. It's absolutely fantastic, but it takes up a lot of time. I have played a bit of Final Fantasy 14 as well, and that was very good, but same again. They're very time-consuming games, so they're really games that you have to properly delve into and put a lot of hours into, and it's worth it. It's so worth it for the experience. But the fact that Riot are opening up into an MMO is a really exciting thing. I mean, genuinely, from everything we know about this universe, like, Runeterra is huge. Incoming like new and Willump game I've been super hyped for, because like you're gonna get to flip and explore the Freljord, and I'm just like, oh my god, it just looks so good already. So the fact that they are gonna do an MMO is insanely exciting. You guys have been asking me to check out Necrit's video on the World of Riot MMO. Is already done. Video, title, name, which I'm very curious about, because literally on the website they're currently recruiting, have like different like careers people they want to get in on this. Like they've not done, like apparently they're gearing up, so they've not actually started this from the looks of things, which makes me very curious about what Necrit's video is going to be about, because I'm presuming it's going to be about him talking about the universe itself and how an MMO could work and different things that could work in it. But I'm really curious. I'm so interested to find out what he has to say in regards to it. But yeah, this was like really exciting, like very exciting.
In the past, MMOs were regarded as the godfathers of games. They were the peak of what developers could accomplish. Even though, looking back, that's a fairly subjective thing to say. Everyone knew MMOs had the power to create cult following, but also everyone knew making MMOs was hard. On average, an MMO has to spend at least 6 years in the baking before it can get anywhere near being good.
I did not know it takes how long to make an MMO. Makes sense, but obviously, like, of course as well, because it's an MMO, a lot of them keep being in development. So like they'll release out this like kind of huge expansive world, and then they keep adding like patches into it, and they keep adding new versions, and they keep adding new expansions, and like it just grows and grows and grows. Like, or like with I know with like World of Warcraft, they released like a brand new expansion. It's like a different area, and they used to do like trailers for it and stuff. Like, and same again, Final Fantasy 14, like super fascinating. It takes a lot of work to commit and get into an MMO, and it's like it's a long-term commitment. Like these MMOs go on for years. I mean, think about how long World of Warcraft's been going on. I mean, that game's been around forever, like forever. So they must really be gearing up for an interesting, huge, expansive world. But it also makes me wonder how much more they're going to expand on it, because we already have such a big universe. Like, oh, it's so exciting though. It really opens up a lot of opportunity.
But that didn't stop companies from jumping onto the bandwagon anyway. And soon we could see dozens of new MMOs, all releasing in 2008.
I forgot about Lord of the Rings. Holy shit. Yeah, because that one got stopped. Like, they were going to do a proper huge Lord of the Rings MMO, and it got cancelled because apparently it just got really complicated, which I don't understand, because, like, it could have been such a good game. Oh, I really hope they go back to it instead of, like, this Gollum game that they're bringing out, because it's, like, a sneaky game, and I'm not really in sneaky games. But, yeah, oh my god.
All being called the WoW killers. Spoiler alert, none of them did that. And unfortunately, we can feel the ripple effects even now. It got to a point where every time a new MMO is announced, we all think the same thing. Oh. Anyway, when you're working on an MMO...
I mean, is he wrong? He's not actually wrong, to be fair. Like, I think all of us do pretty much go like, because even for me, like, my first thought was like, oh, this game is going to be huge and I don't have the time to get into an MMO. Like, but at the same time, it's like, I love the other stuff that Riot's done, so it's like, I know that I will love it, but it's like, at the same time, it's like, it's going to be huge. It's going to be a massive game. So, we'll have to see. Right.
MMO, you have to respect 3 pillars. Gameplay is king, social interactions matter, and the world setting is important. When Riot announced their MMO, it became clear that 2 of the pillars are being respected, and the third one is already done. When it comes to the gameplay, it is currently in the hands of Ghostcrawler, someone who's been working on WoW during its best times, and someone who got a reputation for hating boomkins and loving mages. When it comes to the social interactions, it is a dance between the developers and the players. A dev can guide players towards social interactions, or they can annihilate them. And after that, the players usually find their own fun inside the MMO. From that point on, the devs should do everything in their power to support the players having fun in their own way. And finally, when it comes to the world of an MMO, in Riot's case, it's done. And it's been finished for quite a few years now. In fact, the world of Riot's MMO is in such a good state. They already have the continents, the zones, the cultures and the races. And to a lesser degree, every zone already has its own storyline. Now, of course, unless you follow the lore of League of Legends, you wouldn't know about this. And that's why I decided to make this video. I want to show you.
This is a fucking great idea for a video, by the way. Sorry, just props to Necrit. What a fucking good idea for a video. Absolute genius. Like, he's absolutely right. I completely agree. Because I was thinking this. I was like, how much more can they really expand on the Runeterran lore? Like, it's huge. Like, there is so much. I mean, just each character individually, the amount of lore per character is insane. Like, they do so much lore-wise for these characters. And then that's not even going into the lore of, like, the cities, the background, the history. Like, it's massive. I mean, if you look at, like, the other kind of RPG game that Riot have done, they did the Ruined King, right? The Ruined King itself is a humongous game. Like, the amount of character interactions, the actual fighting style, like all the quests that you do, just like little things that you find out about characters and their histories, and it's humongous. There's so much to learn, and that's literally just in Bilgewater. That is just in one area. So taking that and then putting it into an MMO is like fantastic. And same again, look at Arcane. Look at how expansive Arcane is. Season 1 barely scratched the surface of Piltover and Zaun, and then Season 2, same again, is probably just about going to scratch the surface of Piltover and Zaun if you think about the amount of characters we have not met in those universes yet. And yeah, we had like 9 episodes of so much going on. It was fantastic. So first of all, Season 2, I can't wait. And then second of all, like that alone is humongous. So it's like, this is going to be so expansive, but also it makes me wonder how, because if it's already done, when it comes to like new expansions and things like that, how is that going to play out? And that's what's going to be really interesting, is like the future of League of Legends will be reflected in this MMO, I think, for sure.
You all the zones we are going to see in the MMO and what sorts of quests we are going to do there. So, for the purpose of this video, I will assume you have no idea what League of Legends is about. You have no idea what the universe is about, but you like MMOs, your hairline is receding, and you have a crippling fear of Nintendo 64 controllers.
Cool.
To which, I might add, why do you think I'm wearing hats? But now, without further ado, let's have a look at all the zones in Riot's MMO.
I love this. This is so fun.
This is Runeterra, the world of League of Legends.
Yeah.
Right now, the world is separated into 10 main regions. But these 10 regions don't cover all the land on the map, so there are some mini-zones in between them. And the lore already revealed that there is gonna be another continent further to the east. That definitely sounds like a future expansion to me. In fact, it would be foolish to release all of these regions at launch. You can easily turn half of these into separate expansions. And because a lot of people already know and love these regions, the hype behind these expansions would be big. With that said, I know a lot of you would like to play as Shurimans or Ionians. And now you may be cursing me for suggesting that these would be expansions. But the lore can justify giving you these nations as playable races without having their regions. I'll show you how Riot can pull this off in a bit. First, let's talk about the regions Riot's MMO has to start with.
Right, okay.
The Northern Continent. This entire continent is called Valoran.
this would be a fantastic continent to start with. Oh my god. Freljord, Noxus, like just literal, and then Demacia. Oh, holy shit! Just like the fighting and the war between those continents alone is fascinating. The actual lore, there's like god lore, demon lore. The characters are fascinating. I mean, oh my god. Oh, and then oh my god, and then you've got Piltover and Zaun in there as well, which could be like then like linked to Arcane. Holy fuck. Ooh. Fucking spot on the money with this one. Holy shit, that would be great.
Not Valorant.
Yeah.
Valorant. And this is where the absolute core of this world is. The two main regions here are Demacia and Noxus. They are the two big rivals equivalent to the Horde and the Alliance. While I would like to say that Demacia is your classic normie human region, it's not really true.
No.
Runeterra doesn't really have a normal place. There is something cool happening in every region. And Demacia has racism. Okay, maybe not racism, because Demacia doesn't mind yordles or minotaurs, but they really hate mages. That's because in the past, their rivals almost annihilated half of the world using magic. And so Demacia was built inside a magic-absorbing forest. Therefore, Demacia is a really cool place where you can hide from magic. When it comes to the visuals of the zone, you can see a lot of lush fields, it is surrounded by mountains, but the iconic part of Demacia are the buildings. They are made of petricite, which is a combination of stone and the magic-absorbing wood. Because these ancient magic-absorbing trees were grey, all the buildings have a marble-like appearance. And yes, given what material they are using, all the buildings in Demacia also absorb magic. So should a mage visit this region, let's just say it's gonna be a painful experience. On top of this, let's not forget that Demacians can weaponize petricite. They can turn it into petricite steel, which gives you your classic anti-magic weapons, and you can sculpt petricite constructs which wake up after absorbing magic. Simply said, these guys just really don't like magic. The irony is, they've been absorbing it for years now. And this is where the story would kick in. You see, the Demacians are so afraid of magic, they founded the Mage Seeker Order. This is an order of people who hunt mages, they throw them into prison, and they torture them until their body gives up on magic. So yes, being a mage is a crime in Demacia. The thing is, people still get naturally born with magical abilities. You can't stop it from happening. So not only are there mages hiding in the royal court, right now there is a mage civil war happening in Demacia, where mages and people who don't hate mages rise up to fight for moral rights. So should we do some quests in this zone? This is gonna be the core story.
I mean, that would be a fantastic story to start with. Like, something that pops into my head, I was like, it would be really interesting if you got to pick to be, like you got to create your character in one of these regions. So, like, if you got to create your character in Demacia, or you got to create your character in Noxus, and then if you, like, for example, say you got to create a character in Demacia, if you got to choose, like, if your character was a character that, like, had magic or didn't have magic, and then, like, what role you would play, and that would affect what quests that you do, whether or not, for example, you're hunting down mages, or, for example, like, working with, like, Garen, for example, or whether or not you're, like, trying to, like, save people who are mages and help people while hiding your own magic, like, working with, like, Lux or something, or, like, Silas or something. Like, that would be a really interesting way of doing that and starting off the game, you know. Oh man, that'd be so good. And then, like, in Noxus, you could do so much. The possibilities are amazing. Oh yeah, but I think these are great choices for where to start. Yeah, this is fascinating.
Mages trying to overthrow racist leadership following old laws. So the main enemy NPCs might be mages and witches. But I know what you're thinking now, and don't worry. There will be plenty of boars to kill here too. Or at least there are loads of wolves here, as well as stags. And we can't forget the iconic Demacian raptors. But further to the south, we might find some crag beasts, tiny woolly elephants, and yes, of course in the Argent Mountains there are also dragons.
Nice.
Loads and loads of dragons.
Love a good dragon.
But that's about it for Demacia. Fun fact, the capital city of Demacia is called the great city of Demacia.
Nice.
Sounds dumb, but Runeterra was not the first one to come up with this. But thankfully the other regions are a bit more creative with their names. So now, let's move away from the normie region and let's have a look at the badass region, Noxus.
Noxus!
If you're planning on playing a warrior with oversized weapons and overcompensating lush hair, this is the region for you. This place actually has a long and badass history, but we really don't have the time to explain it now. So just know that originally it was built by the most badass warrior in the history of Runeterra. This motherfucker literally died on a mountain of corpses. And after he died, he was too angry to stay dead, so he just became the god of the underworld. When this guy lived, he built the Immortal Bastion, which is, to this day, the largest structure on the entirety of Runeterra.
The Mordekaiser lore, I actually did a video on Mordekaiser. If you want to watch it, I will link it down in the description below. The Mordekaiser lore is absolutely fascinating because basically he was like a warrior in his life and he basically was fighting and like killing loads of people and doing what he thought was right because he basically wanted to, it's almost like the history of like the Vikings where they basically fight to try and get into Valhalla and like sit with their gods because they've earned a place at the table. Like it's very similar like that with Mordekaiser, and when he got to the afterlife he found that there was no gods or anything to greet him. There was no like reward for the kind of murder and stuff he had done in his life, so he basically decided to become like the god of death basically. So he is a fucking cool character, and the Immortal Bastion is such a cool story, and it links also into like the Black Rose, who are this like undercover organization that are active in Noxus at the moment. So yeah, there are some really great characters in Noxus to like that you could really dig deep into, and like especially like LeBlanc. Oh my god, she's so scary. Like it's so cool. And then like that's not even getting into like Swain or Darius or like anyone else. My god. And like all the assassin stuff. It's fascinating. Vladimir. Oh my god, there's so many. Wow, sorry, I will let him continue. But yeah, Mordekaiser, incredible character. Would definitely recommend checking out his history if you haven't already, or at least reading his biography and stories because they are absolutely fascinating.
And currently he is banished underneath the Immortal Bastion, but only a few people know about it. So you know, that's a future raid boss. Anyway, the Immortal Bastion is the capital city of the Noxian Empire, with Noxus being one of the most brutal nations in Runeterra. It is brutal because the nation is surrounded by rocky earth. It is hard to grow plants here. So Noxians are forced into conquering surrounding land for resources to survive. That's why when you go to the map you can notice that the Noxian territory is all over the place. Yeah. It's because these are all the places Noxus has already conquered. Although, when I say it like that, you may imagine Noxus brutally raiding everything. But that's not true. They like to absorb the surrounding nations into their empire. After all, it's just more human resources. Most of the time they only remove the royalty and they let the leaderless people join their empire. And that's because Noxus values strength above all. And rulers tend to not be good fighters. This is what you can see in the After Victory cinematic. They kill the king because he was weak and let everyone else join them. Fun fact, conquering nations is so iconic for Noxus they have their own saying. Kill them until they are family. So when it comes to the quests in Noxus, it is most likely going to be helping the Empire expand its territory. Although this region has its own unique enemies too. Inside the Immortal Bastion there is a cult known as the Black Rose. This cult is connected to the darkest of magics. So be ready to fight Hemomancers, witches, demons, and the Grey Legion, which is an army of soldiers revived with blood magic to fight for the Empire again. And when it comes to collecting 10 bear asses, here we have the native Drakehounds and Basilisks. Now, while Noxus and Demacia are the main rivals here, both of them are also constantly repelling raids from the north.
Yeah, I think to like reiterate my point from before, I think it would be really cool if you got to choose whereabouts you were from, and even if it was just like getting to pick between like Demacia and Noxus, I think that like you could have such an interesting starting experience with an MMO, and it would be so variable. I mean, also as well, I mean, I guess you could even do like more than one character and you could kind of start one from each. I think it'd be really fascinating to do it that way because you'd have such a different background for each character, and I think because like there's so many different fighting styles and weapons and magic that you can learn, I think having that variance in choosing where you came from, even if it was just between those two. I mean, what I'd obviously love is if you got to choose from wherever you wanted to be from in the game, but I think obviously if they're going to expand out into it that wouldn't make as much sense. But I think that even if you just got to choose between like these lot, it would be fascinating, and I think you'd learn a lot, and it would be a really variable experience and a replayable experience too. And I know in MMO you usually have a character and you build them up, but I've seen in the past where people have multiple characters that they build, and it just kind of gives that kind of opportunity to do that, which is a good thing, you know. It's a good thing and it makes the game have more variables in it, you know, especially if they don't have a lot of expansions that will occur as well. But the Freljord, I'm excited to hear what he has to say about the Freljord, because I love the Freljord and the Freljord lore. It's oh god, it's fascinating so much.
Let's have a look at the Freljord. Just like pretty much any region on Runeterra, Freljord has a long history.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of this video, just know that the maddening old gods known as the Watchers of the Void, who want to devour the entire reality only because it keeps waking them up, once tried to breach into reality here. They almost succeeded because they tricked the Ice Witch Lissandra into helping them. Fortunately, she realized how wrong she was, and she managed to freeze half of the kingdom with the Watchers still beneath them. So these days, the Ice Witch is the only person holding back the end of reality by keeping the Watchers frozen. So at some point in the future, you bet one of these woken up frozen Watchers is gonna be a raid boss. Now, when it comes to the NPCs, this is where things get diverse. First of all, remember that the Freljord is brutally cruel. Everything is frozen, and survival is everything. So the first enemy here would be the wildlife. From Rimefangs to Yetis to Druvasks to Elnuks to Mammoths to the worst of them all, Poros. Next we are going to fight the...
Could you imagine if you could get like a little pet Poro? Oh my god. I was playing League of Legends the other day, and literally we were doing an ARAM, and you could like feed the Poro snacks, and then you had to like defeat a tower to get another snack. I've never been so determined in my entire life. I was like, I will defeat them. I need more Poro snacks. It was the cutest thing. Oh my god, they're so cute. There was one with like a mustache, and I was like, it looks like Braum. It was really cute. But I think as well though, with the Freljord, having like the environment could be a factor. So for example, because of like the rough terrain and the coldness, and you have to like regularly like make fires, or, you know, put on different armor sets that are going to help you and stuff, which is great. But then also as well, I mean, just even from the wildlife itself, there's a lot of variance. I love how much variance there is between each region and all the wildlife. But then the Freljord has obviously different sort of clans that live in it, and they're sort of working like against each other to some extent as well, and it could be fascinating, even just between the clans. I'm sure he's gonna talk about it in a minute, but oh my god, he's completely right.
Freljordians themselves.
Yeah.
There are three main tribes here. The Avarosans, who are quite peaceful, the Wintersclaw, who are quite brutal, and the Frostguard, Lissandra's followers who hold back the Watchers. And let me tell you, these guys have some badass armor. Among the notable tribes, there are also the Ursine, which are shamans who worship the Volibear, the primal god of the wild who slowly turns his worshippers into twisted animalistic monstrosities. Speaking of which, yes, there are also the primal gods of Freljord. And finally, we need to talk about the Iceborn. When the Watchers tried to arrive here, they tainted the ice around them. This special ice is called the True Ice, and it is so dangerous you literally die if you touch it. However, the Watchers also tainted some people, giving them the ability to touch the ice. It is still extremely painful for them to hold a true ice weapon, but at least they can survive it. These people are known as the Iceborn. But people were not the only things that were tainted. there are also ice trolls, some of
yeah,
whom
Trundle.
are also iceborn. To be honest, these guys were made to have their own dungeon. But there are also some animals that were twisted by the Watchers.
Wow.
And Lysandra is even twisting some beings herself to make them serve her. So overall, Freljord is gonna have a lot of cool warriors, shamans, and horrors. So these would be the three.
I can't imagine, after hearing all that described at once, because I knew some of that, but oh my god, some of that is horrifying. Like, I can't imagine the Freljord being a starter region. Like, not in the slightest. Like, Demacia, I could definitely see being more of a starter region, or maybe Noxus. The Freljord I see as being that annoying region where, like, you go in and it's just a fucking nightmare and you're massively underleveled and help me! Like, it's just that fucking chaotic region where you're just, like, dying all the time. That's what I see the Freljord as. It's gonna be a great one, but I see it as being a bit freaking chaotic, I'm not gonna lie.
3 regions on the main continent. But this place is actually so big it can easily make the base world of the game. Especially since there are a bunch of smaller regions in between them. There is Nockmerge, full of witches, Argent Mountains with their dragons, Tokgol with void monsters, Dalamore Plains with him, and so much more. But from here, you can cleverly set up the expansions because of how well everything is interconnected.
Yeah,
so
I can see why.
now, let's have a look at the continent to the east called Ionia. Ionia has a very close connection to Noxus. You can only guess why. It's because Noxians once tried to conquer it all during an event simply called the Invasion of Ionia. This was a horrible war full of using children as soldiers because Noxians thought Ionians wouldn't fight back against children.
I'm guessing that's the one where Aurelia and Swain fought each other. I'm presuming it's that war, and when Swain got his hand cut off. I'm presuming that's the war. I don't know. I just know that there was a war, and I know Aurelia and Swain fought each other.
Chemical weapons. Lots and lots of chemical weapons.
Oh god.
Speaking of which, remember Singed from Arcane? He's the guy who chemically devastated Ionia.
Singed is fucking everywhere. What a little shit. Honestly, Singed is so bad. I think about him in Arcane, and I like the bit that really shocked me the most with Singed, it was like some of the stuff I was like, yes, he's like a mad scientist, but he really didn't like get on my radar very quickly. And then it was when he was like experimenting on that poor animal that when like Victor was a child, and I was like, this guy is like out of control. Like, this guy is messed up. Singed is messed up. That is horrible. Holy shit. Oh my god.
Eventually, Noxus failed, but they kept their small controlled territories. So the first quest here could be simply boarding a ship, sailing over, and exploring the place for the Noxian Empire. Now, when it comes to Ionia itself, the place gets mystical. Everything here is alive and connected to the spirit of nature. And I mean everything, from the animals to the people to the buildings. Everything is alive. So if you anger Mother Nature, your house can twist and strangle you in your sleep. So you can only imagine how Mother Nature fought against Noxians. Usually a river came alive to drown them. That's why all the buildings here look like they were woven from wood. It's because they were. With nature magic, people let nature build their houses. It also means that sometimes your house can just walk away. When it comes to the NPCs here, obviously there is gonna be a lot of nature spirits. And a lot more of simply mystical animals. From giant flying tigers to the never-ending story. But be ready to also face local Ionians, Blade Masters, Shadow Cultists, Murderers, and Ninjas. Both good, bad, and the in-between.
Jin would 100% be a fucking boss. Jin would definitely be a boss. Holy shit. Could you imagine having to fight Jin? Oh, it'd be a bloody nightmare. Oh my, I mean, a lot of them would be a nightmare, but Jin would, oh my god, he would be an absolute nightmare. And he'd be so creepy as well. Oh, that would be a really annoying fight. But it would be a cool fight, but it would be annoying.
But finally, there is also one more enemy that we could face. The furries. That's right, this race is known as the Vastaya. They are half humans and half magical animals. And yes, canonically, the species was born in exactly the way you are thinking. But to be fair, the Vastaya are quite cool and they are definitely gonna be...
Wait, what? I mean, I hope not, because the way that just came to my mind after you said that was not good. I'm just gonna brush past this one.
...a playable race. Just like Yordles, who also like Ionia a lot. Lastly, after Noxians ravaged Mother Nature, demons started occupying all the places filled with misery and doubt. So that's gonna be a nice bonus enemy.
That'd be awesome.
So yes, the exploration of Ionia and the raid on the Shadow Order could be a really cool first expansion. But it's definitely not Riot's only option, because we can also go south to Piltover and Zaun. These are the ones people will know about, simply because this is where Arcane took place. Piltover and Zaun are two massive cities located one above the other. And they are so massive they could easily be turned into their own playable zones. They are both focusing on futuristic technology powered up by magic of the Hextech gemstones. Using this magic they can power up anything from guns to augmented limbs to vehicles. Visually, it is simply futuristic Victorian era. And unfortunately, there wouldn't be much of enemy variety. We would likely fight the rich houses of Piltover and their deadly assassins, with the occasional thief on the streets, corrupt wardens, and the occasional rogue steam golem. But things get a bit more interesting in the undercity known as Zaun. Zaun is the dirty underbelly covered in thick toxic smoke. Because the majority of people are poor here, they developed a cheaper alternative to Hextech called Chemtech. This artificial green stuff can power up cheaper limb replacements, as well as highly unstable weaponry. Zaun is also controlled by the Chem Barons, which are obviously gonna be the main enemy here. But on the side, we may also meet some chemical mutants, unstable constructs, as well as some mass murderers and people who hunt down mass murderers. And funnily enough, at the very bottom of Zaun itself, there are the hidden ruins of an ancient city full of traps. That is obviously gonna be a cool dungeon. So yes, there is not much more that I can add here. Piltover and Zaun were simply explored in Arcane. So if you like the series, you are gonna like this place.
Yes, I can definitely see how Piltover and Zaun could be a very good area to expand into. It would also be a good starting area because I think a lot of people would know it from Arcane. However, I think that it would be nice for it to be more of an expansion because then, like, we get to start somewhere else that we've not gotten to explore before in like a playable or watchable aspect, you know? I know that they were saying with Arcane that they're going to do, like, Arcane Season 2 is going to be based still in Piltover and Zaun, and then potentially Season 3 as well, maybe, but then they were saying maybe from Season 3 onwards they're going to expand out to like another region, which is really exciting, and they haven't said where yet, but this is just what I heard. But I think it would be really cool if, like, Noxus or Demacia was more the starting region. I do agree with that completely. But I could see also why Piltover and Zaun could be because of the familiarity for newer players that haven't played League of Legends and don't know the lore that well. I would also say that I actually didn't know that there was, like, a deeper underground in Zaun of, like, this whole, like, place where there's loads of, like, traps and treasure and stuff. That's really cool to know, actually. I didn't know that. I also think that in regards to, like, enemy variants, I think that it depends on where in the story they would set the MMO and place it, and also the canonicity of it, whether or not they're doing it in the current canon or whether or not they're going to link in some canon lore that, like, is, like, from other universes. So for example, Arcane, I know that it's not technically canon, but it could be canon in the MMO. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to fully stick to the original game canon. They could potentially do other canons like the Arcane, and this could be based on this Piltover Zaun could be more based on the Arcane lore instead of the original lore. So I guess it depends on storyline wise where they go with it as well and where the characters are going to be at in their stories. Let's continue.
From here, we can travel further south to Shurima. Shurima used to be a massive empire that ruled the world. But after the emperor got betrayed by his best friend, the entire empire collapsed. This region is a massive desert with the occasional city near a river. In the center of the region there is the Sun Disk, a colossal piece of star metal that has the power to reflect celestial magic. The Shurimans use this celestial magic to turn their best soldiers into the Ascended, also known as the Golden God Warriors. However, these God Warriors wouldn't make a great enemy here. That's because after the Emperor had died, the Ascended started fighting for leadership. And slowly, after learning how to use blood magic to gain the edge, they morphed their own bodies and became the Darkin. Yes. Twisted, blood-frenzied monsters that would certainly make really cool raid bosses. Besides this ancient evil, Shurima is also full of its own animals.
I do have to admit, I think that, I think he's correct there. I think the Darkin would be better bosses, but I could also see how, like, some of the Ascended would be also quite cool bosses to fight. I think, like, for example, like, Aatrox. Oh, that would be an incredible fight to do, especially if, like, he had, like, taken over the body of, like, a character that we had, like, been working with, or, like, he had finally gotten his way, or, like, we saw, like, a fight between, like, Aatrox and Pantheon. Oh my god, that would be incredible. And then, like, Rast with, like, Kayn, also getting to see, like, whether or not, like, I don't know a lot about Rast and Kayn, but I know that, like, they do kind of fight for the body and share it, and I know that, like, there is another form as well. So I don't know a great deal about Rast and Kayn, but same again, it would be fascinating to get to see that as well. And then also with Varus, oh man, with Val and Kai, oh man, it would be amazing if we got to, like, interact with those characters too. So, like, I think the Darkin would be great bosses, but I also could see how some of the Ascended would be quite cool to fight. But then I could also see as, like, working alongside of them. So, like, I guess it depends. Like, same again, it just depends on where they set it. But Shurima would be an incredible
Raiders, Dune Scavengers,
world to
and on top
check
of all
out.
of that, Void Creatures.
Yes,
That's because
Void.
to the south, there used to be a kingdom known as Ikathia that wanted to destroy the Shuriman Empire. So, they asked the Watchers for help. You can imagine how that went. The Watchers sent through some void beasts that consumed Ikathia and polluted Shurima to this day.
Oh.
To fight back the void, Shurima does have a lot of hidden tombs around with hidden god warrior weapons. Not to mention that Shurima also has a circle of time mages who are trying to freeze the void in time. Now, as I mentioned near the beginning of the video, even if Shurima becomes an expansion, they can still easily make Shurimans a playable race because they are already connected to Noxus. As you can see, of course, Noxians already conquered part of Shurima, so some Shurimans are fighting for Noxus. Also, as a cool fact for those of you who liked Arcane, Hex Crystals are harvested in Shurima. That's why a Shuriman expansion would be a great follow-up to Piltover and Zaun. And again,
Same again, did not know that. That's really cool to know. That also would, could you imagine though if, like, season 3 of Arcane linked into Shurima? That would be so good. So I think I've seen a lot of people saying that, like, Noxus could be next, which would be amazing, but Shurima would also be an incredible, incredible universe. I mean, just going of, like, the Shuriman lore itself and then adding in, like, the void creatures. Oh god, that would be so good. That'd be incredible. Visually, it's absolutely incredible. I would love to see that. That would be amazing. Wow. Yeah, that'd be really cool. But same again, I could see how Shurima could be same again a zone that, like, you'd need to level for and really, like, prepare your, like, part, like, your character for and whoever you're playing with, your, like, your party, and that it would be a very difficult area to play.
Why Riot can easily turn only the northern continent into the base world. Anyway, going west from Shurima, we arrive at Mount Targon.
Oh,
this place is incredibly unique. First of all, this mountain is not natural. It was literally pulled up from the ground by celestial gods. And that's because this place serves as a portal to the celestial realm, also known as Targon Prime. Now, because this mountain was pulled up, it also has some unique features. For example, you may find frozen lakes frozen horizontally on the mountain. And the very peak of the mountain is special too. Should a mortal reach the peak despite the brutal climate and the deadly wildlife, Either they die from exhaustion, or the celestial gods deem them worthy and they become an ascended aspect. There is aspect of war, aspect of the sun, aspect of the moon, aspect of the twilight, aspect of the guardian, and so on. Simply said, after people reach the peak, they become some of the strongest beings on the entire planet. So of course, the mountain is full of people who worship the celestial demigods. And I speculate this is where we could get a lot of cool armor sets. There are the Solari, who are devoted to the aspect of the sun. Then there are their rivals, the Lunari, who are devoted to the aspect of the moon. But also the tribe I assume will become a playable class, the Warriors of Rakor. Of course, besides just humans, Targon also has all sorts of furry Vastaya. Near the bottom of the mountain you may notice that the mountain is alive, but also there are Stellarcorns, a variety of mind-bending creatures, and loads of dragons. Speaking of which, remember that this place is linked to the Celestial Realm. So this is where we may also meet the star-forging celestial dragon Aurelian Soul, as well as all sorts of other celestial beings. A lot of these would make for interesting bosses. In fact, the ascension of Mount Targon would be a really cool raid.
I was gonna say, I wonder if they would do something to do with this region as more like an end game for like a main sort of plot in the game, like, you know, like if you've got like the base expansion, and then I wonder if they would do this as like a kind of like finale to everything, like having it all link into the aspects and everything like that. I could really see it being very end game, because I mean, I don't know everything about the lore, but there is a lot to do with the aspects in Aurelian Sol that I don't know about, and a lot that like I'm still wanting to look into. But I think that like a big theme is the sort of like interference and sort of like chaos that Runeterra has been brought upon with this, and also the fact that like for example, like a good plot point would be like Aurelian Sol is currently under the control of the aspects and being like made to do certain things by the aspects and is wanting to break free. Could you imagine if Aurelian Sol breaks free of the aspects? Oh my god, the chaos that it would be brought upon Runeterra, I think would be insane. And then you could have like things like, you could have links to characters like with Bard and stuff, and you could have like Soraka. Mount Targon would be an incredible area to go to. Oh. But just getting to meet the aspects, I've got questions. I have questions for some of yous. I think this area would be great. But same again, I can see this being more like end game kind of area instead of like an expansion of a region that you'd go into. I don't know, for some reason it just feels that way to me. It doesn't feel like an area that you would do an expansion into. It just feels like more end gamey for me. But that's my own personal opinion. We all have our own opinions, which I respect. So, yeah, that's just the way it feels to me. But I think Mount Targon would be incredible.
Next, on the other side of Shurima, there is Ixtal. This is a special place where people are mastering the elemental magic. They are using it for everything. Fishing, smithing, walking. And this place is definitely gonna be saved for an expansion. Basically, remember when Icathian asked the Watchers for help? And then that happened? Ixtal was their neighbor, and after they saw the Void devour an entire kingdom, they believed the Void would soon devour the entire world. So, using their elemental magic, Ixtal built massive walls of plants around their entire region, isolating themselves from the rest of the world. For 3,500 years, Ixtal stayed isolated, believing that the world outside of their walls was devoured by the Void. But now, very recently, some mages found out that the world outside is completely fine. So now, the Ixtali mages are slowly revealing themselves. To be honest, Ixtal is the most underdeveloped region in Runeterra. We know the region has a lot of hunting Vastaya, deadly plants and some elemental dragons, but most of the region is still a mystery to us. So at least here, Riot will have the freedom to try something new.
Definitely
but
agree.
But now, we leave the main continent to visit the last two regions. First of all, there is Bilgewater. If you like pirate adventures, this is gonna be your place. Yeah, this is where we are going to explore inns and gambling dens, even some local temples worshipping the god of motion, Nagakeboros. Here we are going to fight pirates and sea monsters, sea witches, sea Vastaya, maybe some demons. And possibly we'll side with Sarah Fortune to fight the king of the pirates, Gangplank. But there's a lot more here. Last year, Riot released their RPG, which was set in Bilgewater. So not only can we already explore this place in detail, but it even has a monster journal. And at a quick glance, you can already see some really cool bosses too. However, this place is also linked to the last place I want to show you today. The Shadow Isles.
That's true.
See, every year the horrors of the Shadow Isles lurk out. And Bilgewater just happens to be the closest place. So every year, Bilgewater is fighting the undead. Once upon a time, the Shadow Isles used to be the Blessed Isles, a rich place full of advanced magic. Long story short, there was a young asshole king who wanted to revive his dead queen. And in the process, he accidentally released dark necromantic magic. This magic destroyed the island and made it home for undeath. In the lore, this event is called the Ruination, and because the RPG is called The Ruined King, it may not be a surprise to you that you also get to explore the Shadow Isles there. And there they have anything you can imagine, undead horrors creeping everywhere. And should we ever venture into these islands? I have no idea whom we're going to fight. The Ruined King who caused all of this is banished elsewhere. Thresh, who siphoned his magic after he was banished, also left the Isles. And even Hecarim, the most brutal soldier of them all, is currently around Demacia. So the Shadow Isles don't currently have a main baddie. So this is where Riot could push forward some of the side characters. Now, even though these have all been the regions that are currently set up on Runeterra, Riot has already confirmed that there is a new continent further to the east.
So with the Shadow Isles, it's the same thing again as I've said before. Obviously this video is done with the assumption that it would be set in current lore. I think it just depends on where they set this in the story. They could set this, for example, a little bit further back when Viego was currently active and the Ruination event was occurring. You could, obviously the expansion, you could expand into the Bilgewater. You could expand into Bilgewater and you could have the story of the Ruination occurring. I think the only downside to that is obviously if you've played the Ruined King game, you have essentially played out that story. So it depends on whether or not they would want to do that again. I don't know if they would. However, it would also give an interesting opportunity for, as he said, like other characters that are currently active in the Shadow Isles to be active, or it could also call for the comeback of a character coming back into the Shadow Isles. So for example, Thresh could make a comeback, or even just like some of the side characters, like I know you've got like Callista is there, I know Yorick is there, there's a few others, but like you could also have something along those lines. Even something maybe, I know Mordekaiser used to be related to the Shadow Isles, and I know they changed the canon and he was no longer related into the Shadow Isles, but even then you could even have some canonicity changes. So like I said, it really depends on when they set this in the lore, because I think like if they're going to expand out into the Shadow Isles, they're going to have a well-known villain to rule the Shadow Isles, and it would be a rewrite or like some further expansion into current new lore.
Confirmed that there is a new continent further to the east.
This is exciting.
Currently, it is planned to be revealed in the upcoming Ruination novel. And so far, we know that this new continent is where the Ruined King Viego is from. And this is also where he was banished at the end of his story. All we know about that place is that it is quite mystical. There are yet more dragons here, and in fact, Kamavor, which is the Ruined King's nation, has a lot of draconic armor. So should Riot run out of places to explore, don't worry, they can always make up more. But that's all I wanted to show you today. As someone who's been following the lore of League of Legends from the very beginning, I can tell you, I'm very confident the setting of Riot's MMO is gonna be great. Their incredible writers have been preparing the world for years now. And now, it's time to harvest the fruit. If you like this video, let me know in the comments below, because right now I still have 3 more topics that I could talk about in regards to the MMO. I especially want to talk about the potential raid bosses we can face, and the potential classes we could play. And as someone who has collected an unholy amount of transmog, I would love to show you all the cool armor sets this universe has. But that's it for this video.
So first of all, huge props to Necrit. That was a freaking great video. And if you are someone that does not know the world of Runeterra, that is like a perfect like video to really just give you some of those like key interesting details to like, even if it just like gets you into the League of Legends a little bit more, like the lore itself, I now that I've played the game a little bit, like my interest in the game and my interest in the lore are two very different things. Like the lore in itself is just fascinating. I'm actually really excited to read the new book that's coming out because I know it's more about Viego and Callista and everything, so I'm really excited to give that a read. I'm definitely gonna have to get that soon. But just the universe itself is so expansive, it's so interesting, there are so many different aspects to it. I'm surprised they haven't done an MMO before this, to be honest. Like, there is so much that they can do with this universe. I really do agree with Necrit with what he said here, where like I think that the beginning regions could definitely be Demacia or Noxus. I think for me, I just hope there's a little bit more variance in getting to choose which region you're from. I can also see how like characters could work, because obviously in previous MMOs, like when you're picking like a race of character to be, you usually don't necessarily start in the region that character is from. But also it's interesting because then like when you go back to where that character is from, there is the potential for like characters that you know, and there to be like, you know, a quest to do with like your history as your own character and stuff. It would be really fascinating to do so. So it would be pretty incredible. Like I can imagine. I can just also imagine the excitement of getting to meet certain characters. I mean, if you think of certain characters in this series like that you would want to meet, for example, one that I would love to meet is like Kindred. I would love there to be something to do with Kindred whenever someone dies. That would be so fascinating, for example. Or like getting to meet like Fiddlesticks. Like, can you imagine a quest where you go to like a remote village or something that is being terrorized by this like scarecrow and you have to figure out what it is and it turns out to be fucking Fiddlesticks? Like, oh my god, that would be insanely fucking cool. Like, it would just be so cool. There's just no other word for it. Like, just wow, like it would be amazing. It would be absolutely incredible. I just, you know, or like you go somewhere and like you hear about this demon terrorizing these people and it turns out to be like Evelyn. You then get like a fight against Evelyn. Like, wow, it would just be amazing. It would be amazing. Oh, honestly, it kind of also makes me hope that, because in my experience, I would really like this to almost be a game a bit like, I guess a bit like more like, I know Elden Ring isn't an MMO, but it would be really fun if they had like the exploration and the combat kind of like Elden Ring, like that kind of openness to kind of explore anywhere and do these quests and stuff. I think that would just be fantastic and so fascinating, but also having that in a multiplayer aspect would be incredible. And I just really hope that they get this right. But I also think that like, I think they will. Like I have absolutely every single faith that this is going to be incredible. And I think it could really push forward the universe. And I'm very excited to see where they take this expansion to. Okay, so this is my video reacting to the World of Riot MMO and my kind of thoughts and feels on it. So thank you so much to everyone that suggested this. Thank you so much as well to Necrit for this video. You've done such a fantastic job and I'm really excited to watch the other bits that you've done, because I've seen there's a few other videos as well that have been released about this MMO and I'm really excited to get to delve into them. But yes, thank you so much. If you guys have not given Necrit a follow, please check out his video down below. I'm sure you all have. I have absolutely no doubt, but I need to say it anyway because hats off to him. Absolute League of Legends legend, if I'm being honest. But if you guys enjoyed this reaction video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Plenty more content coming where this has come from. And if you also know, I'm also a Twitch streamer, so if you want to come and say hi sometime, I have started actually streaming League of Legends. So far, the main that I'm feeling currently is Misfortune. I'm currently doing super well with Misfortune. Like, yeah, I can survive a lot better with Misfortune, but it's a very difficult game. But if you want to come check me out playing that sometime, I would love to have you. So please feel free to check out my Twitch channel down in the description below. And if there's anything else you guys want me to react to, please let me know as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.